film fans, what up? It's your boy Tay, and this is Tay Talks Talkies. And as you can see by my shirt, I'm talking about Marvel. And if this was a few years ago, that would be a good thing. But this is 2022, and unfortunately, it's a bad thing. Now, I've known romantic heartbreak.
You were my cinnamon apple.
And that heartbreak hurts, but nothing hurts worse than the heartbreak of an IP that you once loved being destroyed right in front of your eyes. It happened with Game of Thrones, it happened with Star Wars, and now, unfortunately, it's happened with Marvel. Yeah, I'm tired of heartbreak. Now, let me take us back to me being a wee lad, a young boy in the early 2000s. Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man films are coming out, and I fall in love with Marvel. I fall in love with Marvel characters. I start playing a bunch of Marvel games, start reading Marvel comics. Years go by, the Hulk films come out, the Ang Lee one, which is not as terrible as people make it out to be. And then we had the Edward Norton Hulk film, which is officially the very first MCU film. And I thought that film was good. Then we got the Iron Man film, which was incredible. I mean, that film is top level filmmaking, and they did it with the smallest budget out of any of the MCU films. That story was very character driven, and where we're at now is the exact antithesis of where we were at then. The latest couple films I've seen, Shang-Chi, the latest one being Thor: Love and Thunder, which I was putting off watching, but I finally got around to it now that it's on Disney Plus, and boy oh boy was I in for pain. They did my boy Thor so dirty, man. They did him so dirty. They made Thor out to be a joke, a character that is a god, a character that's experienced incredible levels of loss and trauma. They make him out to be a joke.
Oh, no.
And I'm blaming you, Taika, because you had full control of this film. From my understanding, Thor Ragnarok had a team of writers around it. That's why that film felt so cohesive and whole. It was also in an era of the MCU where they were actually leading up to something, where now I feel like they're not leading up to anything. And I think that's a huge problem with where Kevin Feige and the rest of the executive producers of Marvel are taking this whole ship. They don't know the actual destination that they're steering the ship to. They're loosely alluding to a Kang film, but the problem with that is there's contradictions on why the timelines have split. They explained it in Far From Home. They explained it in Loki. There's different contradictions on why timelines are splitting. And if you're an average viewer, you're lost and you're actually pretty much checked out. Even a diehard fan, I'm a pretty hardcore fan. I would see every single MCU film in theaters, usually opening night, if not opening night, the first week or two. Now, I don't rush to go see these films at all. Thor: Love and Thunder, a film that I was so excited when I first heard about it because I loved Ragnarok so much. Quickly did I realize that I was in for a rude awakening on where this is all going. Unfortunately, it seems like the glory days of MCU are far behind, and I don't know what it's going to take. I think DC is doing the right thing with creating these standalone films that are character driven, being created by talented filmmakers that they're trusting to make the films. The Joker and the Batman being the primary two examples. They did incredible numbers at the box office because they're actually quality films. Martin Scorsese, a filmmaker that I really admire and love, a few years back made a comment that offended me. He said MCU isn't real film. But now I think he was being a prophet. I think he was predicting. He felt at that time that was the case. I disagreed because there were great films being made. Ragnarok being one of them, Civil War being one of them, Winter Soldier being another. All these films being actually quality films, not just quality superhero films. But he said that they're not real films, and now more than ever is that the case. They're simply creating content that leads to the next piece of content, which will lead to the next piece of content, and it'll go on and on and on. These basically are vessels to introduce new characters at this point. They're not actually films looking to tell a compelling and captivating story. They're simply vessels to introduce new characters. And we keep paying for it because we're hoping this will be different, this will be different, this will be different.
We got No Way Home
Earlier in the year, and that was a great film. But a lot of the greatness from that film is being drawn from greatness already established by Sam Raimi. And even the Andrew Garfield films had quality things to offer, but that's a whole nother thing. I'm here to talk about where the MCU is at right now. And unfortunately, they've traded gravity for levity. So any moments that are supposed to have real intense gravity, they've replaced that with levity. So you're not invested ever really in the film. I'm going to talk about in specific Thor Love and Thunder. There's going to be some spoilers, but Thor Love and Thunder, not once, not throughout the entire 2-hour runtime, did Thor, did the Mighty Thor, did Valkyrie, did anybody seem like they were scared, seem like there was real consequences on the line, seem like they were actually invested in their own story. And if these characters don't even feel invested in their own story, how can you expect the viewer to be invested in the story? I thought they had something compelling with Jane having cancer, but they turned it into a joke. I mean, Jane herself really didn't even take it serious that she had cancer. They never explored that really intensely, and they missed out on something. A huge complaint I have is the Asgardians of the Galaxy was something that was so optimistic, something that was so promising. And Taika basically said all that stuff that happens where Thor goes off with the Guardians, I'm just going to give you a little montage, a little jokey joke, little example of what they've been up to, and not give us any real. That could have been a whole entire film on its own. That should have been an entire film on its own. But instead, it got reduced to just a few quirky, silly moments with awful CGI because they're stretching these CGI artists far too thin with the amount of projects they're doing. They have to realize that they're simply being off-putting to real hardcore fans, people who really want to come for real stories of comics that they grew up loving. They're turning them off because they're simply trying to create shallow content that has political and social commentary weaved into it. That's not what comic films are about. If you do it tastefully, that's one thing, but when you shove it in people's faces and you make it so obvious on the nose that you're simply trying to achieve some sort of narrative or some sort of agenda, instead of actually creating compelling characters that have real things going on. A big example of this is She-Hulk. She-Hulk has a scene where she reduces the Hulk, all of his trauma. The Hulk is a character that has lost the love of his life in Natasha. He's a character that's committed suicide or attempted to, but the Hulk spit out the bullet. These are all canon things within the MCU that he's gone through. She-Hulk essentially reduces that to nothing, says that her problems are far worse. That's so insulting to the Hulk. That's so insulting to Hulk fans. That's insulting to Stan Lee, who really poured his heart into that character and tried to make him a compelling character. You're spitting in our faces, and we're paying for it. And they did it again with Thor. They made him into a joke of a character. With Gore, they had something compelling. Christian Bale, one of the greatest actors of all time, was playing a scary villain, something that had a lot of promise, but instead, they barely included him in the plot as much as he could have been included. I think probably, if we counted his screen time, I can't see it exceeding 20 minutes. I'm not sure the exact amount, but I can't see it exceeding 20 minutes. How can you have Christian Bale playing a scary villain and not make it compelling? There was one scene in particular that showed us a glimpse of how compelling it could have been, and that was the scene where he comes out of the shadows when the children are talking, and he has his glowing eyes, and he's talking real sinisterly, and he rips the head off the little creature and throws it at the children. There was something compelling there, but the entire plot in general wasn't well thought out at all. He lost his daughter, so he abducts a bunch of children. Are they even thinking about how that doesn't make sense at all for someone who went through the trauma of losing a child? They're gonna abduct a bunch of other children. There's just so many little plot holes like that. There's one scene in particular that bothered me. Thor gave all these children his power. However, even though he says it's his power, he's clearly rubbing Zeus's lightning bolt. Clearly the yellow static, which is indicative of Zeus's powers, is emanating off of it. He imbues the children with that yellow electricity, but somehow it's Thor's power. And where was that in the Infinity War saga when that could have been a super advantageous thing to stopping a threat to all of existence in Thanos? That could have been super beneficial, but instead they're just inventing random things that he can do all of a sudden without actually making it earned. And that is just super reflective of the entire state of the MCU. It's just plot hole after plot hole without a real basis for why things are happening. Another huge plot hole is Eternity. Eternity was never mentioned during the Infinity War saga when they needed something as omnipotent as a wish-making god. That was never mentioned, even though apparently it's common knowledge to these characters. And apparently the Bifrost, the thing that Thor can utilize, is the key to it. It's just like, this doesn't feel earned at all. And not only that, but Thor allows Gore to potentially make a wish ending all of gods or all of existence. He allows that. He says, do what you must, or what, something along those lines. Is that supposed to be heroic? Because he was allowing that character to risk making an awful wish. His mind was corrupted by the Necro Sword. They made that pretty clear. His mind was corrupted by the Necro Sword. So you're trusting someone whose mind's corrupted by the Necro Sword to make a wish, or to realize something within himself about character development? He does, and he wishes back for his daughter when they could have wished back for a bunch of characters. Or they could have, I mean, the guy can grant any wish apparently, this Eternity character. It was just the biggest plot armor bullcrap, and it felt uninspired, it felt unearned, and that's just where we're at with all of MCU. All of the shows have been mediocre. There hasn't been one show that I felt was actually a compelling piece of art, piece of media. It all feels just like filler content after filler content, with good moments sprinkled in there, but with just good moments sprinkled in and no cohesion to the moments. It constantly leaves me feeling unsatisfied. And I'm tired of it. I don't even want to give these films or shows my time any longer. Miss Marvel, I couldn't finish watching. She-Hulk, I couldn't finish watching. The twerk scene with Megan Thee Stallion, it's legit like a bad joke. It's legit like an SNL skit. And that's spitting in the faces of all Marvel fans, because we deserve something that is actually serious and compelling. Not something silly-willy that you'd see in SNL, like that floating head of Heimdall's son skit that took place in Love and Thunder. That was, I can't believe that was included in the film. The same exact universe where we had Tony Stark in a cave with a scientist that gives his life just because he believes in Tony Stark. Serious moments like that. Thanos sitting there appreciating that he ended half of existence because he feels like he achieved his life purpose. These are really serious character moments that were earned, and we just don't get those anymore. And I'm frustrated, and that's why I didn't rush to watch Love and Thunder. I actually put it off for a couple months. I waited for it to come out on Disney Plus, which I'm tired of paying for as well, because I don't think it's worth the $8.99 or whatever it even is, which is not a lot of money at all. But that's the quality of content that they've been creating. Now, I don't want to give up completely on the MCU because there are so many films within the MCU umbrella that I love so much. Now, they all happen to be from a few years ago at this point, because the last MCU film that I actually thoroughly enjoyed was
No Way
Home. I went and saw it twice in theaters. But again, that's because it was riding the coattails of predecessors that had achieved a cult following, a mass following, a bunch of fans. And that film was kind of just capitalizing on that energy instead of creating its own energy. But films like Black Widow, which not only came out far too late, Black Widow's dead, but it didn't even do that character service. It didn't even dive deep in with those deep, dark things that happened to Natasha. It didn't even dive into that to any degree. Instead, it was just another explosion, CGI, joke fest. These characters deserve more. The fans deserve more. The actors deserve more. I mean, Chris Hemsworth, the shape he was in to play Thor, could you imagine anyone looking any more like Thor? And that guy's putting in that type of work, that type of dedication. The creators, the writers, the producers, they need to be showing that level of dedication as well, because it's not fair to the actors. I don't even look forward to any upcoming Marvel installations because I know I'm going to be met with disappointment every single time. The Groot show, it's for children. So you're making content for children, but not even compelling, intelligent content for children. Dumbed down, watered down content for children where Groot is just falling down and getting into hijinks and slapstick comedy. Groot is an interesting character, and imagine the opportunity to create a unique show where the main character doesn't speak. He only can speak 3 words. But imagine creating a compelling piece of art around that. But that's a challenge that Disney and Marvel would never take because it's too much of a risk in their eyes. I think risky filmmaking is good filmmaking because at least you're setting out to create something original, something that's unique, something that hasn't been done before. So yeah, that's where we're at basically with the MCU. They've replaced gravity with levity. They don't feel like the fans can handle real intense character dramas. I don't know why they wouldn't just take notes from DC the same way DC took notes from them, and look at the fact that they had so much success with the Joker and the Batman. They trusted talented filmmakers to make film. Now when it comes to these Marvel characters, they're already rich. They're already so well written. All you have to do is honor that and bring that to life correctly. A 1-to-1 adaptation at the least. You should be trying to enhance it. Bring these characters to life, but make them even more complex and dynamic. But instead, we see them take these characters and water them down and make them less dynamic and make their pain into actual jokes, which is what they did with Thor: Love and Thunder, what they did with She-Hulk. They made the Hulk and they made Thor 2 of the most traumatized and most abused emotionally characters. These 2 characters have gone through the most intense emotional pain. They've turned their pain into jokes, and they've turned these characters subsequently into jokes. The Hulk deserves better, Thor deserves better, and we deserve better. And I think it's time we really, really start getting more vocal about demanding that they use these characters and use them right. That's all I gotta say today. Hopefully we'll see some quality MCU content because I don't think the ship is completely sunk. They have so many characters left to explore. There's so much gas left in the tank, so I really truly believe if they can get that ship steered in the right direction, maybe fire Kevin Feige. Maybe it's like NFL teams or basketball teams. When you hire a new coach, you got the same players, but now you got a new coach to invigorate that new energy. And who knows, maybe you can win because they have not been winning. This has been L after L after L. I have not seen a quality MCU film, and none of the shows have been quality. They have quality moments, but as a whole, I'll never rewatch any of those. And I think rewatchability is a huge testament to the quality. I'll rewatch Iron Man till the day I die. I'll rewatch Winter Soldier till the day I die. I'll rewatch Civil War till the day I die. I'll rewatch Infinity War and Endgame till the day I die. But you won't catch me rewatching Thor: Love and Thunder. You won't catch me rewatching Shang-Chi. You won't catch me rewatching Black Widow. I've seen what I need to see. I choose to rewatch the films that are truly magical, not the films that have become cold, corporate, just agenda-fulfilling content. So let's see less content and more film. Please, MCU, because the characters deserve it, the fans deserve it, everyone deserves it. And you guys will make more money in the process. It's literally win-win. If only life was that simple, though. But as for now, that's all I got to say about that. Your boy Tay is out.